So what makes marriage worth it? There's a lot of issues and conversations surrounding, should people get married? Marriage is on the decline. I think it has to do with people being self-centered, personally, and I can't imagine life being a single woman. I've been married for almost 18 years now. Some of it has been extraordinary. Some of it has been incredibly low and difficult, and I wouldn't trade any of it for the single life.
Yes, thanks for having me on your Spartan Woman podcast. What makes hard things worth doing? And why are so many people attracted to easy outs?
It's interesting, society in general, that people want the results that are on the other side of difficulty, but they don't want to deal with the difficulty itself. And now, granted, there are some difficulties in marriage that are completely insurmountable. The two things that I would not be willing to work through with you is if you were physically violent with me or our children, or if you were addicted to drugs and unwilling to address the addiction. Pretty much everything else, I think, can be worked out.
Yeah, think about everybody listening to this and watching this, however old you are. The impulse of social media, the impulse of even the government now, is to devalue hard-earned, long-term effort. Commitment or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't get effort long-term without commitment, for sure. So what makes marriage worth it? Why is it so difficult? Because like even in the SEAL teams, the divorce rate is astronomical because it's hard as hell. It's hard for about 1,000 reasons, and if we listed 60 of them, we'd probably be PhDs in marriage.
I think it's got to be so confusing for young people or even middle-aged people who are single and trying to navigate the experience of a single life or wanting a relationship or companionship of some sort, because there's all these weird mixed messages that are coming out from mainstream outlets about what you should or shouldn't do or be as a woman or a man. There are grand efforts to emasculate our boys and men, and I'm not having it with my kids at all. And there are extraordinary efforts to put women in a position where they feel like they need to physically compete with men for jobs, like in Spec Ops, which we're seeing a lot of, which is completely ridiculous in my opinion. And before I have feminists coming on here and screaming at me and telling me how anti-woman I am, I'm not suggesting that women can't do those jobs. I'm asserting forcefully that there is no need for them to do those jobs. We have plenty of men to do those jobs, and women can serve the country without going into Spec Ops. And if women really want to be in Spec Ops, they need to join forces and lobby the government to create a unit that is Spec Ops only.
See what it's like to be in a marriage. She goes off on tangents as quickly and as deeply as possible on planet Earth.
I'm not even sorry. Like, these things need to be said. People need to hear this, and I think not only do people need to hear it, but they need to know that they're not alone in this, because you and I cannot be the only ones going, the world has lost its mind.
I agree. And so the marriage thing, hard-fought battle of uniting two strong individuals over time for some purpose, whatever that would be. Stacy and I were just watching Jordan Peterson's little clip.
What makes being married worth it?
Wild sex. Sorry, it's kind of a flip answer, but I couldn't resist. What makes it worthwhile? So I noticed in my clinical practice that couples who stayed together had to spend about 90 minutes a week in intimate contact with one another, and also just talking for 90 minutes about their lives, about the domestic economy, about the kids, about the practicalities of life. And at the same time, they wove a rope that was their joint story. And that's something to have in your life, to have someone who you're moving forward with, that you can communicate with honestly, who you can rely on in times of trouble, and to call you out on your stupidity. Thank God for that.
It was his daughter.
Was that his daughter interviewing him?
His daughter.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So he embarrassed his daughter?
Yeah.
I do that a lot,
that
too.
was the cuteness of it.
So one of the things that in training leaders in the past, 10 years, One thing that I've seen to be catamount to being a successful man is the amount of time, energy, and intimacy you give to your wife. And I swear to God, nobody puts a leadership program on that talks about relationships at home.
Yeah, and I mean, the training we've been doing with our clients for 10 years now, it's always fascinating that it comes down to the relationships at home that people are having, you know, whether we're working with men or women who are in positions of leadership within an organization, when their marriages or their relationship with their significant other is not working out, things begin to fall apart at work. And when we can get that relationship solid, everything really flourishes at work.
Yeah, and Jordan made a profound point that I'm glad he made it. And I don't say that he's been doing the work of helping people emotionally and psychologically probably as long as I was in the SEAL teams. What I found to be true, and if you're damn brave enough to figure it out, is every single day that ends in Y, you have to spend time, even if you're traveling, connecting with your spouse. He said about 90 minutes a week. To me, you have to spend 15 minutes a day. So sometimes the day off is more detrimental than the summation of the time. Can you imagine spending or putting effort into your spouse every single day?
I think it's one of the things that, if y'all will forgive me, but I think women are stupid, especially those in long-term marriages where they neglect not only their own physical and sexual needs, but especially and in particular the needs of their husband. And they come to a place of complacency and comfort and ease and taking for granted the fact that he's not going to do anything because after all, you're together for a very long time and he's not going to risk it by being unfaithful. But you're really setting yourself up with your flank wide open, because eventually people get their needs met. And if you're not willing to be the one who's meeting the needs of your spouse, they will resent you because you're unavailable, or they will go seek it somewhere else, or they will do both. And I'm talking about this as being something that women are guilty of. There is likely men who are guilty of the same thing. I'm fortunate not to have been a woman to experience that with my husband.
Not only does it, so all you men, look at me here for a second, men, everybody eventually in a marriage doesn't think the other person is as sexy as they were during the honeymoon phase. And the honeymoon phase for a lot of marriages, I've come to find out, it's about 2 weeks. It's not only that the male or the female will seek somebody else, it's that you turn off yourself because it doesn't seem as interesting over time. Without intimacy every day, and that can be an exploration of love language. It could be what Stacy just said, actual in the bed, in the closet, wherever you are, having the physical side of intimacy. What normally happens is both people start, I call it the death of 1,000 cuts. They stop being physically connected to the other person.
They stop making the effort to make sure that the other person feels connection.
And they start gaining weight. They start
and
getting
they justify
tired.
Doing it.
The man isn't getting it, starts turning himself off. The woman starts turning herself off, and then you could just look at a couple, and as their health diminishes, it's because their intimacy is diminished 100%. You can bet on that in Vegas. And what Jordan had said was it transforms the relationship when they begin to ensure, force, adhere to the 90 minutes or 15 minutes a day, 90 minutes a week or 15 minutes a day policy of listening to each other, which I have said this for 10 years. Listen to each other until the other person's done speaking. Speak without bullshit or drama. Don't speak how you feel because, listen, y'all don't know how to deal with your own feelings, so don't come from there. Factual, interesting stuff, ideas, things that you're working on. And the third one is create a love language for each other, whether it's physical, whether it's acts of service, whether it's what are all the other love languages. Know your spouse's love language.
By the way, he said physical because that's his, and acts of service because that's mine.
That's why I'm a janitor in my house.
And look at how happy he is over there. So a couple other points that were made in the Jordan Peterson video that I think were extremely important is you need somebody that you'd be willing to go to war with. When every chip is down and there's nothing but uncertainty and danger swirling around you, you got to have somebody that you know you can count on, somebody whose back you can have and who will have your back as well. The other thing that he was talking about is the importance of having somebody to call you on your nonsense. I mean, that is a difficult thing to do as a spouse on the giving and receiving end of it. But if you don't have somebody in your life that you know will have your six at all times, and they're still going to come to you when you have fallen short of the mark, you've not kept your word, you're starting to neglect the things that the two of you have agreed upon, somebody has to come around and tell you that. And they have to be assertive and gentle at the same time. And there's nobody who will do that for you like your spouse. You may have friends do it. I hope you have friends that do that in your life. But there's nobody like the person you've been committed to, had children with, and shared years with, who can have quite the same effect and response as your spouse. Now, you could probably say, if it's from your spouse, you're going to turn it off and not listen. You're going to reject the notion that what they're saying is right. And if you're doing that, I would challenge you to do some reflection into what's wrong with you. If the person who loves you the most, you can't listen to them come to you with things that you are missing the mark on.
Well, the 50,000 foot view of marriage and what makes it matter, why be in a marriage, is because you're supposed to fight towards each other, not away from each other. The issue at the granular level is you're not with the right person. You're fighting each other. You don't listen, you don't speak well, and you don't have intimacy. You don't have goals, so you're fighting away from each other. And I hear a bunch of wealthy people on social media, I can't remember the guy's name, Mr. Wonderful, he said, you have a choice. I have a business and my wife complains about me or my girl complains about me, which is harder to replace? Mm-hmm. It's because he's not in a relationship that's supportive, so he's limited financially because of the lack of support of being with the correct person that you're fighting towards.
Well, and let's face it, when your relationship isn't going well, it's very easy to go to the next place where you're getting a tremendous amount of gratification, which is work in this instance or many others. So if work is where you're getting that reinforcement or that dopamine hit from doing well, making money, then you're going to pour yourself into that. Like you see endurance athletes who, Tom's praising this girl who's done like 170 endurance, like 50Ks in 170 days. So he's impressed by that. I think it's ridiculous because literally everything in her life is suffering because she's doing that. Now he says she's doing it with her kids or whatever. Okay. I mean, I just think from my perspective,
she's not married.
Says it all. She's
That's
not married.
The other draw of when everybody's watching social media and all these successful people, they don't have the right partner, so they're freed up in time. That's the feeling that everybody has. It's easier, like the old saying, it's quicker to go alone, but you go farther together. So case in point, the reason why the SEAL teams are so demonstrably better is because they fight towards each other. Mm-hmm. Their whole job in a platoon is to fight and help the other person. Now I want you to wrap your head around that. In business, in your family, you're not fighting towards each other. You're not willing to risk your life for the other person every time you do something.
Yeah, it's certainly not the tendency.
It's totally not. Mm-mm. Ideally, or when it's set up properly, your capacity goes up 100-fold. If you're not in a profound relationship where you're fighting towards each other, you actually can't do the other things very well anyway.
No.
So
you can kind of examine the people who are stuck in those loops and see that notionally everything around them is sort of half measures.
It is. Or triple the time. If you're working an 18-hour day, you're in a bad relationship. So you have to compensate for the disparity of the relationship because you can't do the simple part of the relationship. So you quadruple down on time. Once people find out relationship, they work less time and make more money. Literally. Have we not seen that for 10 years?
Yeah. The other thing is, and I guess this is rather obvious, but everybody gets hung up on things on social media where relationships look easy and perfect and happy. We have a very strong marriage. We have been through our share of highs and lows. I mean, combat deployments, moving, transitioning, leaving the military. You know, we're not as young as we used to be. We have physical things that we have to deal with that we didn't before. Our kids are getting older. We only have one left at home. So it's a constant challenge and change, but it's in how we address those things. And I oftentimes think in terms of Thom being my swim buddy, which is a term from SEAL training where you can't be more than 6 feet away from your swim buddy. And even when things are dark between us and we've had our shares of difficulties, I never feel like he's that far away from me that we can't find each other, find our way back to one another.
Fighting towards each other. The ability, as Jordan said, to fight towards each other is what y'all should learn. Fight towards each other. Don't fight for finding the right partner, because that's not fighting towards each other.
No, fight to be a partner worthy of the kind of spouse you want to attract.
100%.
Don't try to be the person you want to attract. Try to be the kind of man or woman that the man or woman you're looking for would find irresistible on every level.
Isn't one of the funniest issues as we grow through ours, we see our kids, like our daughter is now engaged. We see couples that we've trained in our training. The inability to realize that whoever you are on the beginning of the relationship is not going to survive much longer than 5 days post marriage.
Everything changes.
You have to
all the time.
You have to change to fight towards each other. Get rid of the stupid shit you do. Kill it. If it's not affecting each other positively, stop fucking doing it.
And notice what you resist. What you resist that your partner asks for, needs, or wants. Notice what you resist and work on your resistance instead of their needs and demands. Stop making it about they are wrong to want X, Y, or Z. Find it in yourself to try to create what it is that they're asking of you. And I'm not saying, to break personal moral codes here before anybody reads into that. But, for example, Thom wants us to work out every day. That is incredibly connecting, and it took me a while to come around to that. And now it's something I look forward to. I wanted to do it on my own. Doing it with him changes my life. And I resisted. What I'd like to do is help people overcome mistakes in a shorter amount of time to mitigate the pain and the loss. Focus on making yourself the person who the spouse you're looking for wants. And if you are in a relationship, to look at the needs of the other person as much, if not more, than the needs of yourself. That will change your marriage and your relationship.
And keep getting better.
Keep getting better.
Keep getting better. The stuff that doesn't work, it's in conflict with each other because it's not working.
Yeah.
If something's not working, y'all, stop. Don't be so, we have to do it my way and it's wrong each time. Don't be so big on yourself to hold on to that. One of the great sayings that Stacy and I have is one more day.
One more day.
And the other one is where you go, I go. Can you do that? Can you be badass enough to live one more day, no matter what's going on, and to fight towards each other? Can you be that type of human being?